I never asked to be the last human diplomat on Stellaris Prime. Earth sent me because I was expendable. No family left to grieve. No career worth protecting. Just a quiet man who spoke softly and read old paper books in the dark. They called it cultural exchange. The Luminari called it an insult. Queen Liora Vale decided otherwise. The first servant arrived at dusk on my third week. Tall, luminous skin like polished pearl, eyes the color of molten silver. She wore almost nothing, silk that shifted like liquid starlight, and carried the scent of night-blooming flowers engineered to trigger human desire. She knelt at my threshold and offered herself in the formal words of her people: body, loyalty, pleasure, all for the Queen's chosen puzzle. I invited her in, poured tea from the tiny electric kettle I'd smuggled from Earth, and asked her name. She blinked, startled. Luminari servants don't expect names to matter. We talked until the twin moons rose. I told her about the night my parents died in the shuttle crash over the Pacific, how the newsfeed cut to commercials before the names were even confirmed, how my sister stopped speaking after that and still lives in a care home I can barely afford to call once a month. I didn't flirt. I didn't touch her. I just spoke. Honestly, the way no one had ever spoken to her. When she left, her eyes were wet. She didn't report failure to the Queen. She simply bowed deeper than protocol demanded and whispered, "Thank you, Ryan Hayes." The second came the next night, then the third, then 10 in a single week. Each one arrived prepared to conquer. Each one left changed. I told them about rainy Seattle mornings when the sky feels like it's crying with you. About the stupid joy of finding a $20 bill in an old coat pocket. About the scar on my left forearm from trying to fix my dad's motorcycle when I was 14 and failing spectacularly. I asked them questions no royal ever asked. What do you dream about when the palace is quiet? What scares you most? What would you do if you weren't a servant? They answered, haltingly at first, then in floods. Stories of mothers they barely remembered, of sisters executed for disloyal thoughts, of the suffocating weight of perfection demanded by a queen who had never once cried in public. By the 40th, I stopped counting arrivals and started counting the tiny folded notes they began slipping under my door, messages written in hurried script, thanking me, promising silence, swearing they would never betray what we shared. By the 80th, the Queen's spies must have noticed something strange. The servants no longer returned to the palace with reports of conquest. They returned quieter, thoughtful. Their eyes carried something new. Loyalty. Not to her. To me. The 100th arrived at midnight. Same perfect beauty, same rehearsed grace. But when I offered tea instead of my bed, she didn't kneel. She sat across from me like an equal, folded her hands, and said, "They talk about you in the lower halls. They say the human doesn't take. He gives." I smiled tiredly. "Tell your queen I'm still not interested in being claimed." She stood, hesitated, then pressed something small and warm into my palm. A single bioluminescent petal from the royal gardens. "This is from all of us," she whispered. "We chose you long before she sent us." Then she was gone. I sat alone in the dim light, turning the petal over in my fingers, feeling the faint pulse of something ancient and unnameable in my pocket. The harmony orb, still hidden, still waiting. The chime at my door came at 3:17 station time, long after the palace lights dimmed and the crystal avenues outside fell silent. I was still sitting at the small table, the 100th petal resting beside my cooling tea, when the panel slid open without waiting for my permission. Queen Liora Vale stepped inside. No entourage, no ceremonial robes, just a simple charcoal tunic that clung to her like smoke, hair unbound and spilling silver white down her back. Her eyes, those furnace-bright orbs that could silence entire council chambers, looked almost human, uncertain. She didn't speak at first. She simply stood in the doorway, taller than any of her servants, filling the cramped space with the faint ozone scent that always surrounded her. The air felt heavier the moment she crossed the threshold. I rose slowly. "Your Majesty, don't." Her voice was low, rougher than I'd ever heard it in public addresses. "Not tonight." I gestured to the second chair. "Tea." She stared at the kettle as though it might bite her. Then, after a long beat, she crossed the room and sat. The chair creaked under her. Luminari queens do not sit in diplomats' quarters. They certainly do not accept beverages poured from a device that cost less than one of their earrings. I poured anyway. Plain black tea, no sugar. The way I drink it when I'm thinking too hard. She lifted the cup, studied the steam rising in delicate spirals, then met my eyes. 100 of my finest. Selected by genetic archives. Trained in every art of allure known to 12 systems. Every pheromone profile tuned to human receptors. Every gesture calculated to trigger pair bonding instincts. She set the cup down untouched, and not one succeeded. I shrugged. They succeeded at something else. Her brow furrowed, the faintest crack in that perfect composure. Explain. They succeeded at being seen. I leaned back, folding my arms. Not as tools, not as weapons, as people. I asked them questions. I listened. That's all. Liora's gaze sharpened. You seduced them. The word hung between us like static. No, I said quietly. I didn't touch any of them. I didn't promise anything. I just talked. About Earth. About pain. About the stupid, messy things that make us keep going even when everything hurts. They weren't used to that. She looked away, toward the narrow window where Stellaris Prime's twin moons hung low and heavy. They returned to the palace silent. Some wept in the servants' halls. Others wrote poetry, and hid it under their mattresses. One of them left a note on my private console. Her voice dropped. It said, "He sees us. You should let him see you." I felt my pulse kick. And here you are. Here I am. She finally took a sip of the tea, winced at the bitterness, then drank again anyway. I have ruled for 43 cycles. I have crushed rebellions, negotiated treaties with species that breathe plasma, watched stars die. I have never once been confused. She set the cup down with deliberate care. Until you. Silence stretched. Not uncomfortable. Just full. Why send them at all? I asked. Because you fascinate me. The admission came out like something dragged from deep water. A nothing species diplomat. No fleet. No rare minerals. No ancient lineage. And yet you sit here, month after month, refusing every currency the galaxy trades in. Power. Pleasure. Status. You read dead philosophers and drink terrible tea and act as though none of it matters. It doesn't, I said. Not the way your court thinks it does. Her eyes flared brighter for a second. Anger? Curiosity? Both? Then teach me what does. I studied her. Really studied her. The tiny lines at the corners of her eyes that no one else would ever see. The way her shoulders carried 4 decades of being untouchable. The faint tremor in her fingers when she reached for the cup again. Stay, I said. Finish the tea. Tell me one thing no one else knows about Queen Liora Vale. She laughed. A short, startled sound that died quickly. You dare bargain with me? I'm not bargaining. I'm asking. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, so softly I almost missed it, when I was 9 cycles old, before the Ascension rite, I had a friend. A gardener's daughter. We used to hide in the lower conservatories and pretend we were explorers on a dead world. She called me Lia. Not your highness. Just Lia. Her voice cracked on the name. She died the day before my coronation. Poison. They never found who ordered it. I was told it was necessary. To sever weakness. I didn't offer sympathy. I knew better. Instead, I reached across the table and turned her cup so the handle faced her again. A small, human gesture. I'm sorry, I said. That's all anyone can say sometimes. She looked at my hand, then at me. Something shifted behind those burning eyes. Not surrender. Not yet. But recognition. We talked until the first pale light of dawn touched the spires outside. When she finally rose to leave, she paused at the door. I will come again, if you allow it. I already did, I said. She left without another word. I sat back down, heart hammering, and slipped my hand into my pocket. The harmony orb was warm against my palm, warmer than it had been in months. A faint, almost inaudible hum vibrated through my bones. Whatever it was doing, it had just begun. If you've watched this far, then this story is really interesting to you. Please confirm it by clicking like under this video. It doesn't cost you anything, but it will help me understand what story to publish for you next. Let's move on. She came back the next night, and the night after that, and the one after. No announcement. No guards at the corridor ends. Just the soft chime at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, or whenever the palace finally exhaled and let her slip away. Each time, she wore something plainer than the last. First a simple gray robe, then loose trousers and a tunic that could have belonged to any low-ranking attendant. By the 4th visit, her hair was tied back with a plain cord instead of jeweled pins. She looked almost ordinary. Almost. I never asked how she evaded the surveillance webs. I suspected the harmony orb had something to do with it. Its warmth in my pocket grew steadier each time she crossed my threshold, like it was humming approval. But I kept that thought locked away. We didn't talk politics. No treaties, no alliances, no veiled threats about Earth's probationary status in the Dominion. Instead, we traded small, fragile things. I taught her how to make instant ramen from the emergency packets in my supply crate. She burned her tongue on the first bite and laughed. Actually laughed when broth dripped down her chin. "This is barbaric," she said, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "And strangely comforting." I showed her grainy hollow photos from my old phone. Foggy Seattle mornings, my sister's crooked smile before the accident, the tiny backyard garden my dad used to tend until the weeds won. She studied each one like a star chart, asking questions no luminary ever asked. What did the rain smell like? Did your father sing while he worked? Why do humans keep things that hurt to remember? In return, she gave me pieces of herself she'd never shown anyone. She told me about the night before her coronation, when she stood on the highest balcony and watched the twin moons rise, terrified that the weight of the crown would crush whatever was left of the girl who once ran barefoot through conservatory soil. She told me how, for the first decade of her rule, she kept a single preserved flower from that gardener's daughter pressed between the pages of an ancient text on stellar cartography, proof that joy had once existed. One night, she brought a small crystal vial filled with pale blue liquid. "Memory essence," she explained. "Distilled from the royal archives. It lets you relive a single moment exactly as it was felt." She hesitated, then pressed it into my hand. "Drink it if you want to feel what it was like to be 9 cycles old and believe the galaxy was kind." I didn't drink it. Not yet. Instead, I set it beside my father's old wristwatch on the shelf, a human relic next to a queen's secret, and said, "Maybe we save it for a really bad day." She smiled at that. Small. Real. We talked about loneliness the way only people who've carried it for decades can. She described the suffocating silence of throne rooms where every word is weighed for treason. I told her about the nights I sat outside my sister's care home window because visiting hours were over and I couldn't afford to bribe the night nurse again. We didn't try to fix each other's pain. We just sat with it. Shared tea. Let the quiet do the work. By the 10th night, the rules had quietly dissolved. She kicked off her boots and tucked her long legs under her on the floor cushion. I leaned against the wall with my knees drawn up. Sometimes we didn't speak at all, just listened to the distant hum of the city's spires and the soft tick of my Earth clock counting seconds that meant nothing here. One evening she asked, "Do humans ever stop grieving?" I thought about it. No, but we learned to carry it lighter. Like a stone in your pocket you've gotten used to. She reached over and brushed her fingers against the pocket where the harmony orb rested. She didn't know what was there, only that my hand always drifted to that spot when I was thinking hard. Her touch lingered a second longer than necessary. "You carry something," she said softly. Not a question. "Everyone does," I answered. She didn't press. Instead, she leaned her head back against the wall and closed her eyes. I have not felt this unburdened since before the ascension. I watched the faint bioluminescent pulse under her skin slow to a calm rhythm. For the first time since I'd arrived on Stellaris Prime, the room didn't feel too small. It felt exactly right. Outside, the palace slept. Inside, 2 impossible people sat in the dark, trading stories like currency no one else traded in. And somewhere deep in my pocket, the harmony orb pulsed once. Warm, steady, almost content. The whispers started small. A servant who lingered too long in the lower halls. A guard who reported seeing a shadow slip from the diplomatic wing at odd hours. A minor courtier who noticed the Queen's private schedule had developed unexplained gaps. Gaps that coincided exactly with the times I left my light on past midnight. By the 15th night, the rumors had teeth. High Advisor Kale Voss was the one who sharpened them into a blade. I first noticed him watching me during a routine state audience. Tall even for luminari, skin the color of cooled mercury, eyes narrow and unblinking. He stood behind the throne like a statue carved from suspicion. When Queen Liora dismissed the session early, claiming fatigue, an excuse no one had ever heard from her before, his gaze followed me all the way to the corridor exit. That same evening, she arrived later than usual. Her face was tight, the easy warmth of our previous nights replaced by something guarded. "They know," she said without preamble, closing the door behind her. "Not everything, but enough." I set the kettle on. "What do they know? That I come here. Alone." Repeatedly. She paced the small space, 3 steps one way, 3 back, like a caged thing. Voss has already convened an emergency session of the Inner Council. They call it concern for the stability of the Dominion. I poured tea for both of us. "They think I'm manipulating you. They think you're a threat." She stopped pacing, met my eyes. "A soft threat. The worst kind. No weapons. No demands. Just words. Just presence. And it's working." I handed her the cup. Our fingers brushed. She didn't pull away. "What will they do?" I asked. "Demand proof." Her voice was flat. "Of my autonomy. Of your harmlessness. They will invoke the trial of the eternal echo." I'd read about it in the diplomatic briefs, dry, clinical summaries that made it sound like a historical curiosity. Now her tone told me otherwise. "It's not a game," she said. 3 chambers. 3 tests. Designed centuries ago to forge unbreakable Luminari warriors. No one has completed all 3 in over 200 cycles. Most break in the first. The rest don't come out. And if I refuse, the council will declare me compromised. They'll force a regency vote. Or worse. She looked away. They'll remove you. Quietly. Permanently. I took a slow sip. The tea tasted bitterer than usual. "Then I won't refuse." Her head snapped back to me. "Ryan, I'm not running," I said. "Not from this. Not after everything." She stared at me for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or pride. Or both. "You could die," she whispered. "I could have died 100 ways before I ever left Earth." I set the cup down. At least this time it would be for something real. She closed the distance between us in 1 step. Her hand rose, hesitated, then rested lightly against my chest, right over my heart. The bioluminescence under her skin pulsed in time with my heartbeat. "I will be there," she said, "watching. Every moment." I covered her hand with mine. "Good. Then you'll see I'm not lying when I say I'm not afraid." She stayed longer that night than any before. We didn't talk much. We just sat, her head eventually resting against my shoulder, my arm around her waist, listening to the city breathe outside. When she finally left, just before dawn, she paused at the door. "Whatever happens," she said, "know that you have already changed me more than any trial ever could." The door hissed shut behind her. I sat alone in the sudden quiet, hands slipping into my pocket. The harmony orb felt heavier now, almost alive. Its warmth spread up my arm like quiet reassurance. The next morning the summons arrived. Sealed crystal tablet delivered by 2 stone-faced guards. Trial of the Eternal Echo. Dawn, 3rd cycle. Arena sublevel 9. No signature, just the royal seal. And beneath it, in handwriting I recognized, Liora's, 3 small words scratched into the crystal like a private promise. "Come back to me." I traced the letters with my fingertip. Then I started preparing, not with weapons or strategies, with memories, with the stories I'd told 100 servants, with the truth I'd given a queen, and with the small, humming secret in my pocket that had never once failed me. The descent to Arena sublevel 9 felt like falling into the planet's memory. Crystal corridors narrowed until the walls pressed close enough to brush my shoulders. The air grew colder, thicker, scented with ozone and old stone. Guards flanked me the entire way, silent, faces carved from the same silver as Kale Voss's. No one spoke. No one needed to. The arena itself was vast and circular, carved from living crystal that pulsed faintly with inner light. Tiered seating rose into shadow, every seat filled. Nobles in formal robes, warriors in segmented armor, even common citizens granted rare permission to witness what they called the forging of worth. Queen Liora Vale sat at the highest point of the royal dais, regal again, expression unreadable stone. Only her eyes, those burning eyes, found mine across the distance and held. High Advisor Kale Voss stood at the center of the floor, arms folded, voice amplified by the crystal acoustics. "Ryan Hayes of Earth, you stand accused of undue influence upon Her Majesty. The trial of the Eternal Echo will determine whether your presence corrupts or merely intrigues. Survive the 3 chambers. Prove your worth. Fail, and your species' diplomatic petition ends with you." He gestured. A section of floor dissolved into light. A doorway appeared. "Begin." I stepped through. First chamber, the tempest of forgotten shadows. Darkness swallowed me whole. Then memories erupted. Not mine alone, but every buried wound the mind tries to forget. I saw the shuttle crash again. Flames licking the fuselage, my father's last transmission cutting to static, my mother's scream frozen mid-breath. I saw my sister at 12, eyes vacant in the hospital bed, doctors explaining irreversible neural damage, while I signed forms with shaking hands. I felt the weight of every unanswered call. Every month I couldn't afford the next treatment. Every night I sat outside her window whispering apologies to glass. The tempest didn't just show pain. It made me live it. Again and again. Layers peeled back until I was raw, screaming inside my own skull. I didn't fight. I let it come. I whispered to the storm the same thing I'd whispered to 100 servants. This is who I am. This happened, and I'm still here. The howling slowly faded. The shadows receded. I emerged from the first chamber trembling, sweat-soaked, but upright. The crowd murmured, confusion, not awe. Luminari warriors built mental fortresses against such assaults. I had simply accepted. Second chamber, the infinite echo chamber. No light, no sound at first. Then silence became a scream. Endless nothing. No walls I could touch. No floor beneath my feet. Just void stretching in every direction. Time dissolved. I floated, or fell, for what felt like days. Hunger gnawed. Thirst burned. My own heartbeat grew deafening, then vanished. I was alone with the echo of my thoughts, looping, growing louder, crueler. I talked to myself. I recited poems my dad used to read aloud on rainy Sundays. I sang off-key lullabies my mother sang to my sister. I told stories to the darkness about rainy Seattle, about finding $20 bills in coat pockets, about the scar on my forearm from a failed motorcycle repair. I made friends with the echo. I named it Dave. When the chamber finally spat me out, gaunt, voice hoarse, legs shaking, the arena was dead silent. No luminari had ever emerged still speaking coherently. Third chamber, the veil of bonding. I stepped into soft golden light. At the far end of a raised dais stood Queen Liora Vale, dressed now in full ceremonial regalia, obsidian crown gleaming, robes cascading like frozen night. Beside her stood Lord Arden Thaler, heir to the second house, tall and severe, hand already extended toward her in the formal bonding gesture. Kale Voss's voice rang out. The final test. Witness Her Majesty pledge herself to one of her own. Watch the bond form. Endure it without breaking. Prove you do not claim what is not yours. My heart slammed against my ribs. Leora's eyes met mine across the space. Agony lived there, raw, unguarded. This was never part of her plan. This was the council's knife, twisted deep. The ceremony began. Words in ancient luminari rolled through the air. Light began to weave between her hand and Lord Arden's. Crystalline threads of intent, duty, empire. I walked forward. The crowd gasped. I stopped just outside the ceremonial circle. Before the bond could seal, I spoke, quiet, but clear enough to carry. Your Majesty. Every eye turned. I know what you expect, I said, looking only at her. You expect me to shatter, to beg, to declare that I can't live without you, that humans are weak because we feel too much. Kale smiled, cold, victorious. But that's not love, I continued. That's possession. I reached into my pocket, not for a weapon, but for something smaller. A single folded sheet of paper. A poem I'd written by hand 2 nights ago, when sleep wouldn't come and all I could think about was her laugh over burnt ramen. I stepped forward and set it on the ground at her feet. If this bond brings you happiness, if he is what you truly want, then I step aside. I won't fight. I won't break. I'll walk away with whatever dignity I have left. Because loving someone means wanting them free, even if that freedom doesn't include you. The threads of light faltered. Leora stared at the folded paper as though it were burning her. Then, slowly, she bent and picked it up. The arena held its breath. The folded poem rested in her palm like something fragile enough to shatter the empire. Leora's fingers closed around it slowly. The crystalline threads of the bonding ceremony, still half-woven between her hand and Lord Arden's, flickered, stuttered, then began to unravel like smoke caught in wind. The golden light dimmed. The ancient words faltered on the lips of the officiant priestess. The arena held one collective breath. Kale Voss stepped forward, voice sharp with alarm. "Your Majesty, the ritual." Silence. One word from her cut through the crystal like a blade. Every sound died. She unfolded the paper with deliberate care. My handwriting, messy, human, spilled across the page in simple ink. Freedom isn't the absence of chains. It's the choice to stay when you could walk away. Real love doesn't demand your heart. It offers its own and hopes you'll take it. If happiness waits elsewhere, let it find you there. I'll still be grateful for the nights we shared tea, and the mornings we almost believed the galaxy could be kind. She read it once, twice. Her burning eyes traced each line as though memorizing a star map. Then she looked up at me, not at the council, not at Lord Arden, not at the thousands watching from the tiers. Just me. Something cracked behind her regal mask. Not anger, not weakness, recognition. The same look she'd worn the first night she sat at my table and tasted bitter earth tea. She turned to Lord Arden. "You are released from any obligation," she said quietly. "Go." He stared, stunned, then bowed stiffly and stepped back. The threads dissolved completely. Kale Voss surged forward. "This is unprecedented. The trial requires." "The trial," Liora interrupted, voice ringing clear through every tear. "Tests worthiness to stand beside a queen. Strength, endurance, the capacity to place duty above desire." She raised the poem like evidence. "This human has just demonstrated more worth in one gesture than any Luminari candidate I have evaluated in 43 cycles. He did not beg. He did not manipulate. He did not break. He offered me freedom, true freedom, and asked nothing in return." She descended the dais steps, each one deliberate. The crowd parted without command. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the faint tremor in the bioluminescence beneath her skin, close enough to smell the faint ozone that always clung to her. "You would have let me go," she said, so softly only I could hear. "You would have watched me bond with another and walked away whole." "Yes," I answered, "because you deserve to choose. Every time. Freely." Her hand rose, hesitated, then cupped my face, cool obsidian fingers tracing my jaw with a tenderness that made my throat close. "Then I choose," she whispered. "Now, and in every moment after." The arena erupted. Cheers, gasps, shouts of confusion and outrage and awe. Nobles surged to their feet. Warriors clashed fists against breastplates in salute. Common citizens wept openly, something I'd never seen a Luminari do in public. Liora didn't look away from me. She raised her voice only once more, addressing the entire Dominion. "The trial of the Eternal Echo is concluded. Ryan Hayes of Earth has passed." She turned her head slightly toward the royal dais. "High Advisor Kale Voss, you are stripped of rank and title, pending full inquiry into your conduct. Leave my sight." Kale's face went ashen. Guards moved before he could protest. He was escorted out between two lines of warriors who no longer saluted him. Liora returned her gaze to mine. "The council advises," she said, loud enough for every crystal wall to carry the words. "It does not rule." Then, softer, just for me, "Come with me." She offered her hand. I took it. Her fingers closed around mine, strong, steady, warm in a way no Luminari skin should be. We walked out of the arena together, not as queen and diplomat, as something new, something impossible. Behind us, the crowd roared on. Ahead of us, the crystal corridors stretched toward whatever came next. In my pocket, the harmony orb pulsed once, slow, satisfied, almost like a heartbeat matching hers. It had done its quiet work, and now the real story was beginning. 3 months later, the formal bonding ceremony filled the grand crystal hall with light that made the spires outside look dim by comparison. Ancient words and dead languages rolled through the air. Crystalline cords wove around our joined hands, mine rough from earthwork, hers smooth obsidian. A consort circlet settled on my temples, light as promise, heavy with meaning. I remembered almost none of the ritual details afterward. I remembered her eyes. When the final vow echoed, Liora turned to the assembled empire, nobles who once sneered, ambassadors who once dismissed Earth as irrelevant, subjects who had questioned their queen's sanity, and spoke. "I sent 100 servants to seduce this man." Her voice carried without amplification. I watched from the shadows as he refused each one. Not from coldness, not from pride, from an abundance of principle. He treated every woman with respect, asked their names, listened to their stories, and sent them away unchanged, except deeper. She placed her hand over my heart, the same gesture from our first real night. I tested him with trials meant to break our greatest warriors. In the end, it was he who tested me. He showed that strength lives in vulnerability. That power means nothing without someone to share it. That the greatest conquest is not territory or obedience, but the quiet choice to stay. She looked out at the sea of faces. Let the galaxy know, humanity is no longer a footnote. They are partners. Family. The hall erupted. Later, in the private chambers that were now ours, she stood before me, still in ceremonial robes, but looking almost shy. I have something for you. From a hidden fold, she produced a small, battered book. My father's copy of Marcus Aurelius. The spine cracked, margins filled with his notes, pages water-stained from years of Seattle rain. How? I had it retrieved before your old quarters were reassigned. She offered it with both hands. I know what it means. I wanted your father here, with us. I took it. My fingers trembled against the worn cover. She stepped closer. You taught me what love is, Ryan. I'm still learning how to show it. I pulled her into my arms. She stiffened for half a second, old habit, then melted against me, forehead to my temple, bioluminescence pulsing slow and warm. You're doing perfectly, I whispered. We stood like that a long time. Outside, the first sun rose, setting every spire ablaze. Somewhere children would hear this story one day and laugh at the part about the 100 servants. I smiled against her skin. She pulled back slightly. What amuses you? When we tell our children someday, they'll never believe the 100 women part. Her eyes widened, then softened with something vast and new. Children, if you want them. She rested her hand on my chest again. With you, yes. They would have a father who understands warmth. A mother who's learning. Still learning, I agreed. Always. I kissed her then, gentle, reverent. She kissed back fierce and hopeful, like she was pouring 4 decades of loneliness into one moment and finding it returned whole. When we parted, foreheads touching, she whispered, "Thank you for refusing to be seduced." "Thank you," I said, "for watching from the shadows long enough to see me." In my pocket, the harmony orb, now quiet, its work done, gave one final, contented pulse. It had amplified every honest word, awakened her heart, turned her scheme into the freedom she'd secretly craved all along. And somewhere in the galaxy, a backwater species called humanity had just become something more. Because love, it turned out, was the strongest resonance of all. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Write in the comments what moment in this story impressed you the most. And also check out the other videos that just appeared on your screen. See you in the next video.